This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 32 and I've been working nights at this old hospital for about 5 years. I remember walking through those quiet hallways when I thought it was just another routine shift. The flickering lights buzzed above me, and I was used to the unusual sounds of the night. But what happened still haunts me. I finished my first round and sat at the station to log my notes. It was way too quiet. I didn't mind it, usually, but sometimes silence felt heavy. Then I heard its soft voices coming from the hallway. I thought maybe it was some staff chatting. It wasn't unusual. I walked toward the sound, but it faded away. I turned back to my paperwork, shaking it off. Maybe I was just tired. My heart raced, but I didn't want to call anyone. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Over the next few nights, I kept feeling strange things. One night, I noticed a lone shoe sitting in the hallway by room 204. I looked around, expecting to find a patient. Nothing. Just a shoe, staring back at me. I picked it up and brought it to Lost and Found. I convinced myself it was just a mistake, nothing more. Another night, I passed the storage room. I swear I saw a gurney moving slightly. I stopped and rubbed my eyes, but it stayed still. I told myself I was tired, but still, I felt cold. The kind of cold that makes your skin crawl. Then came the worst night. I was in the break room when I felt eyes on me. I looked around, but it was empty. I tried to shake it off until I heard my name whispered. It was faint, Jamie. My stomach dropped. I looked around again, but I was alone. Each shift made me more anxious. I thought maybe I was losing my mind. Or was it the hospital? Was it hiding something? I didn't know. Then one late night, I walked down the long corridor. I heard it again. Jamie. I turned around but there was no one there. My heart raced. I gasped for air. Just as I was about to step back to the station, I saw something at the end of the hallway. Hello. I called out. My voice shook, but there was no answer. I moved closer, my hands felt clammy. Suddenly, everything went quiet. A dead silence surrounded me. What was happening? I couldn't understand it. When I opened the door to room 204, I felt the chilling breath of air on my neck. I spun around. Nobody. Just the empty room. My chest felt tight. But as I peeked in, I saw something in the mirror, an outline of someone standing behind me. I whipped around, but still nothing. My heart was pounding. I stumbled back out into the hallway. I wasn't prepared for whatever was out there. I tried to breathe. My mind raced. What was going on in this hospital? Each night felt like I was walking into a nightmare I couldn't escape. I never got answers. I never understood what I experienced. But those voices, that cold feeling, and the ghostly whispers stay with me. They haunt my nights now. I returned to work the next night, still shaken but determined to push through. I couldn't let it get to me. The shifts had to go on, and I had a job to do. But fear gnawed at me. Thoughts of what happened in room 204 filled my mind. I needed to regain my confidence. As I walked down the corridor, my footsteps echoed. The silence felt heavier than before, as if it was alive, watching me. I glanced at the clock. Just after midnight. I was the only one in the entire wing. I started my rounds, trying to focus on my tasks. I had to check on the patients, administer medications, and keep an eye out for any emergencies. I stood outside room 204, staring at the door. I wanted to avoid it, but a strange pull made me reach for the handle. Just a quick peek, I told myself. I opened the door cautiously. The room was empty. Nothing out of place but still unnervingly cold. I stepped in, feeling the urge to close my eyes and take a deep breath. But a slight sound drew my attention. It was a faint scratching noise, like fingernails on a metal surface. I looked around, but the room was silent again. My heart raced. I knew I shouldn't linger, but I stepped a little further inside, scanning the corners. That's when I noticed something on the floor, half hidden under the bed. I leaned down to get a better look. It was a small, old journal. My heartbeat quickened. I picked it up, dusting off the cover. It looked worn but still intact. The name written inside made me freeze, Sarah Collins, 1995. A chill creeped up my spine. I had heard of Sarah. She was a patient who had died in this very room many years ago. Her story had haunted the hospital staff, her illness and untimely death a tragedy. I suddenly felt trapped, as though the air around me thickened with her presence. I flipped through the pages, feeling the weight of her words. They were filled with ramblings about isolation, fear, and whispers in the dark. I couldn't help but read more, almost drawn into her despair. But then, a note caught my eye: "They come for me at night. I can hear them." My hands trembled as I read further. She mentioned a figure watching her from the corner of the room, someone she could never fully see. Just after I read the words "Look behind you," I heard it again. Jamie. I dropped the journal, and it hit the floor with a thud. My breath caught in my throat, and I spun around to find the room empty. The whispers felt louder now, echoing in my ears. Panic surged within me. I turned back to grab my things, but the chilling breeze enveloped me again. I stumbled, desperate to get out. As I reached the door, I caught a glimpse of the mirror. The shadow was back, its outline clearer this time. Before I could comprehend it, I was out in the hallway, gasping for air. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being hunted. The journal lay on the floor behind me, a piece of a puzzle I didn't understand. Why was Sarah's story reaching out to me? I needed answers. But as I turned the corner, I bumped into someone. My heart nearly stopped. It was a nurse I had worked with once. "Hey. You okay?" she asked, but her eyes widened as I stared back. "Did you see?" I started. But then the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness. I could barely breathe. That's when I felt a cold breath brush against my neck. I gasped, my mind racing. The voice I had heard before now echoed in my ears. "Jamie." I turned, but the hallway was empty. My knees felt weak. The nurse had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. I stepped back, fumbling for my flashlight in the pocket of my scrubs. The beam pierced through the gloom, revealing shadows that danced along the walls. "Get it together, Jamie," I whispered to myself. I had to move. I had to find someone. But as I bolted down the hall, the air felt thick and suffocating. Every sound amplified, the creak of the floors, the soft hum of the ventilation, and a whispering that seemed to follow me. When I reached the nurse's station, my heart sank. The station was empty. The monitors flickered to life, casting a ghostly glow. I needed to check on the patients, but room 204 loomed over me like a bad omen. I wanted to forget it, but that damn journal kept nagging at my mind. What if there was something in it that could explain what was happening? I hesitated, my pulse racing, before deciding to turn back. I had to know. I approached room 204 again. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The room was just as I had left it, cold and untouched. The journal lay where I had dropped it, mocking me with its presence. As I stepped closer, I noticed something else. The mirror hung directly opposite me, reflecting the dim light. I caught a glimpse of something in the glass. Movement. I squinted, and that's when I saw it, figures shifting in the murky depths behind me. I spun around, my heart racing, but the room was empty. Just me, the journal, and the cold creeping in. Fear twisted in my stomach. I approached the mirror, leaning in. "Look behind you." Sarah's words echoed through my mind like a warning bell. I turned slowly. There was nothing there. Just the empty room. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker. I glanced back at the mirror. A shadow, darker than the darkness around me, darted to the side, vanishing as I tried to focus. I took a step back, my instincts screaming at me to run. That's when I heard the unmistakable sound of soft giggling. I froze in place. It felt childish, innocent, but the laughter rang out loud and clear in the dark room. My heart raced. I checked the hallway and whispered loudly, "Who's there?" Nothing answered. I turned my attention back to Sarah's journal. My fingers trembled as I reached for it again. I needed to find something, some hint that would explain what was happening. As I flipped to the back pages, a scrap of paper fell out a note. It was hastily written, "If you see them, don't look away. They want you just like they wanted me." My breath hitched in my throat. I glanced over my shoulder again. Was that a shadow creeping along the edge of the room? Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the laughter rose in a crescendo, a cacophony of childlike voices echoing my name, Jmie. My feet propelled me forward, racing out of the room, but the shadows seemed to reach for me. As I rounded the corner, the air shifted, and I could swear I felt cold fingers graze my arm. Someone was playing a dangerous game, and I was in the middle of it. I ran, my shoes slapping against the cold tile as I sprinted down the dim corridor. Every instinct told me to keep moving. The whispers echoed behind me, calling my name in a twisted chorus that danced in my ears. Jmie. My mind struggled to make sense of it, but all I could focus on was escape. Reaching the nearest set of double doors, I burst into the break room. The lights flickered overhead, and the small haven felt like the calm before a storm. I slammed the door shut, leaning against it to catch my breath. My heart hammered in my chest, and my palms were clammy. "What is happening?" I muttered to myself. I glanced around the break room. It was empty, the coffee maker gurgling softly as it did its job. I ran my hands through my hair, trying to collect my thoughts. I remembered Sarah's note. "If you see them, don't look away." Had I done that? A movement caught my eye. My breath caught as I turned toward the window. Outside, the courtyard was bathed in a wash of moonlight, but the darkness felt almost alive, squirming with unseen things. I fought against the urge to look away. Determined, I dropped my gaze to the journal, still clutched in my hands. I thumbed through it again, searching for anything, any clue, that might help me understand. The pages crackled under my fingers until I spotted another entry dated just days before Sarah went missing. It read, "They come when the lights flicker. They want to play." A chill crept up my spine. I glanced at the door. Distracting thoughts swirled in my mind. If I had to face whatever was lurking in the shadows, I needed to arm myself with knowledge. I flipped to the next page, and that's when I saw it, a sketch of a child, eyes wide and mouth open in a silent scream. The resemblance to the girl in my vision was uncanny. A sudden thud echoed from the door, rattling in its frame. I jumped, the journal tumbling from my grip. I scrambled to retrieve it, my heart racing all over again. Had it heard me? Then there was silence, thick and oppressive, filling the room around me. I dared to breathe as I reached for the door, my fingers hovering. Whatever was out there, it seemed to sense my fear. Gathering my courage, I slowly opened the door. The hallway was dark, the flickering lights casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally. I stepped back, my mind screaming for me to retreat, but I forced myself to look down the corridor. A shape darted past, a flicker of movement that froze me in place. It couldn't have been more than a child. A girl, with hair like disheveled strands of darkness. I blinked hard, my heart pounding like a drum. "No, no," I whispered, more to myself than anything. Before I could process it, a loud crash came from the end of the hall, as though something had fallen. I turned, adrenaline coursing through my veins. There, where the laughter had echoed moments before, stood a figure dark and obscured, but the outline eerily familiar. As I took a step back, the lights flickered once again, plunging everything into darkness. My mind screamed for me to run, but it was too late. I wasn't alone anymore. "Jamie," a voice whispered from the void. "Join us." A cold dread settled in my stomach. This was just the beginning. I hesitated, my toe catching on the doorframe. The chill of the floor seeped through my shoes, and I fought the urge to bolt in the opposite direction. What did it mean to join them? My breathing quickened, and my pulse pounded in my ears. I was being drawn into something I didn't understand, something terrifying. "Come play with us, Jamie." The voice was softer now, almost pleading. I could barely see, but I could feel that presence edging closer. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into an abyss. I forced myself to step out, squinting into the darkness. The flickering lights threw jagged shadows that seemed to dance and writhe around me. My mind raced back to Sarah's journal, the warning echoing in my thoughts. The girl I had seen earlier flitted through my mind like a ghost. "Just breathe," I whispered, trying to anchor myself. I turned my back to the break room, glancing instead toward the nurse's station down the hall. Flickers of hope ignited in me. If I could make it there, I could find help. As I started down the corridor, I noticed the walls were smeared with something dark near the floor. My heart sank. I crouched down to see better. Blood? Or something that looked like it? I swallowed hard, reminding myself of that desperate urge to escape. I had to keep moving. With a pulse of determination, I pressed on. The hallway stretched endlessly, objects at the periphery of my vision seeming to shift. I turned my head sharply to catch glimpses of movement but found nothing. Still, the whispers remained. "Jamie," it was a grin stitched together by terror. No longer could I risk looking back. I marched to the nurse's station, praying the lights wouldn't die completely. As I reached it, I noticed a clipboard lying on the desk. My eyes zeroed in on something scrawled in frantic handwriting across the top of the page: "Help them. Don't look at their eyes." A sudden crash jolted me. I whipped around just in time to see the girl from before, her hair winding like shadows around her shoulders, standing at the hallway's end. She was staring directly at me, her eyes large and unblinking. I took a trembling step back. "Join us," she said, her voice childlike yet haunting. I could feel her gaze digging into my skin. Instinct kicked in. I grabbed the clipboard and edged away from the nurse's station, desperate to avoid the girl's penetrating stare. I needed to look away, to break the spell, but something inside me compelled me to look back just once. But to my horror, she wasn't alone anymore. Behind her, a dozen more children appeared, forming a line that seemed to stretch back into the abyss of the hallway. All were looking at me, their tiny mouths moving in unison, whispering that same, dreadful refrain. Panic surged in my chest. The lights flickered violently. I dashed towards the nearest exit, clutching the clipboard tightly, my only weapon of understanding against the unspeakable horror lurking behind me. Just as I reached for the door handle, the lights finally went out. The world slipped into complete darkness, and I heard them move. "Join us." I swung the door open, slamming against the wall. I stumbled into the hallway, panting heavily, fueled by adrenaline. I didn't dare turn around. Maybe if I kept moving, I could escape whatever nightmare had taken root in that place. I heard whispers behind me, the children's echoes trailing in the blackness. I could feel them drawn towards me, like a tide pulling at my ankles. The fear bubbled in my gut as I sprinted down the hall. "Just breathe," I muttered again to myself, though it felt less convincing this time. My eyes darted, seeking an exit or a friendly face amid the shadows. I tripped slightly over something on the floor, my foot sliding against a small chair left askew. I cursed under my breath and pushed myself back to my feet. Ahead, the fluorescent lights flickered back on, dim and buzzing, revealing a small, sterile waiting area. I paused to catch my breath. The sterile smell of antiseptic came rushing back, mingling with the musty scent of the old building. I spotted a small table with magazines, their pages dusty and yellowed from neglect. That's when I saw it, a figure draped in white, sitting in one of the chairs. My heart picked up again. Was this another shade? I squinted to try to make out more details, but the figure didn't move. "Hello?" I called softly, moving closer. The figure had ghostly hair spilling over its back. Relief washed over me momentarily, it didn't seem threatening. Until it turned its head. I gasped. The face was familiar. A nurse I had seen during my previous shifts, but something wasn't right. Her eyes looked vacant, and I could almost see the flickering shadows behind her irises. "Help them," she whispered, her voice hollow as though it was echoing from a cave. She gestured weakly toward the hallway I had just fled. "What do you mean?" I asked, taking a cautious step back. My instinct screamed at me to run. "Don't look at their eyes," she repeated, her gaze slipping away as if she were somewhere else entirely. No longer could I tell if she was alive or part of this sickening illusion. Then a noise broke the silence, a soft thudding, like footsteps drawing nearer. I turned my head toward the hallway just as the lights flickered again, and I felt that icy grip of dread tightening around my throat. Something was coming. I couldn't wait to find out what. Without thinking, I dashed past the nurse, not wanting to linger in the space any longer. My heart raced as I burst through another set of double doors and into what seemed to be the break room again. The flickering lights flickered again, casting my world in momentary shadows. I pressed my back to the wall, thinking I might catch my breath for a moment. Yet the whispers returned, flooding the air all around me. They were louder now, filling the empty break room as if the very walls were alive with their voices. My thoughts raced back to Sarah's journal. Help them. But help who? Then I noticed a large, rusted metal door at the back of the room. Through the wall, deeper into the darkness, I could have sworn I heard a child's laugh, a sickly sweet sound that twisted my stomach. I hesitated, feeling a pull toward it despite every logical instinct warning me against it. But they were close behind. I had no choice. I was going to find out what was behind that door. I reached the rusted door, its surface cold and unwelcoming against my palm. As I fumbled with the latch, I could hear the whispers intensifying, almost as if they were urging me to enter. A part of me wanted to pull back, to shut out the madness, but the other part was drawn in, desperate for answers. With a shaky breath, I forced the door open. It groaned in protest, and the scent of dampness hit me like a wave. I stepped inside, the darkness swallowing me whole. The faint glow from the break room faded behind me. I squinted, searching for any signs of life or perhaps echoes of the dead. The room was larger than I expected. The walls were lined with storage cabinets, all closed tight, and a flickering bulb cast twisted shadows that danced across the floor. In the corner, I saw a small, tattered cot with a frayed blanket. My heart raced. Had someone been sleeping here? Then I heard it again, the child's laugh. It was clearer this time, like a playful giggle reverberating off the walls. I turned, feeling exposed, and glanced toward the source. Nothing was there, just shadows. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding weak and small. The laughter stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that settled around me. My breath caught in my throat. It felt like the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I took hesitant steps deeper inside, my curiosity fighting against the dread. As I moved closer to the far wall, I noticed a break in the shadow, a small outline of what seemed to be a door, painted the same dark color as the wall. It was partially ajar. I could feel an invisible pull toward it. For a moment, I hesitated under the weight of indecision. But the whispers were back, a cacophony urging me to discover whatever lay beyond. Pushing the door open further, I revealed a narrow, dim corridor. The air felt thick and stale. I stepped inside, my mind racing with what I might find. The walls were covered in peeling paint, and the flickering light bulbs overhead buzzed like angry bees. A chill ran down my spine as I caught a glimpse of something at the end of the corridor, a door with a familiar symbol etched into its surface. An old warning sign I'd seen on the hospital's blueprints, authorized personnel only. A sudden clap of laughter echoed again, this time sounding closer. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. That childlike laughter was cold and taunting, not the innocent sound I'd hoped. It sent tremors through me, as though something far more sinister was at play. Before I could think, a shadow darted out from the corner of my eye. I turned sharply, my pulse racing, only to find an empty space. Gulping down my fear, I took a few steps forward. The whispers grew louder, almost morphing into distinct phrases. "Help us," they cried softly. Someone or something was in here with me. I had to see what it was. But before I could move again, the door slammed shut behind me, slamming my heart in my chest. The laughter returned, now a shrill, mocking chorus. That's when I spotted a faint glow seeping from under the other door. It beckoned me, an unsettling allure I couldn't ignore. I took a deep breath and moved toward it, my heart pounding harder with each step. Whatever lay behind that door, I felt, was the key to understanding everything. But as I reached for the handle, I realized I wasn't alone. A shadow loomed behind me, and when I turned, I found myself face to face with a pair of hollow eyes that seemed to belong to the very darkness itself. I stumbled back, the cold sensation of fear gripping my throat. That face was gaunt, almost skeletal, its features obscured in shadow. I wanted to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. The laughter faded, leaving only the heavy silence, as if the building itself was listening. Forcing myself to breathe, I turned to dart down the corridor. But as I swung around, the shadow shifted, merging with the darkness like smoke. I felt a chill creep over me. It was no longer just the atmosphere, something sinister was watching me. I backed away slowly, my eyes glued to the spot where the figure had been. As I did, my foot caught on something, an old medical chart strewn on the floor. I didn't remember seeing it before. My heart raced as I knelt to pick it up, but my hands trembled so much that it slipped from my grasp. I stole a glance at the door behind me. It remained closed, but I knew I had to act fast. Curiosity mingled with dread as I retrieved the chart, examining the faint handwriting. Each line told a story of people, patients, and their struggles. But there was something off about it. The last entry was scratched out, the ink smeared as if someone had tried to erase it desperately. "Help us." The whispers returned, more urgent now, echoing from the far end of the corridor. I felt the hairs on my neck stand up as if someone was right behind me. With one last glance down the dark hallway, I sprinted back toward the door that led to the glowing light. I grabbed the handle, and it twisted easily in my grip. As I pushed it open, the light enveloped me. The small room was filled with blinding brightness compared to the shadows I had just escaped. It was cluttered with medical supplies and rusty tools, abandoned and collecting dust. In the center sat an old examination table, stained and worn, a stark reminder of the place's history. But it was the wall opposite the entrance that caught my attention. Taped to it was a series of photographs, images of children. Their faces were bright with life, but with each photo came a sense of loss. They felt trapped in time, their eyes pleading for something I couldn't understand. Then, I noticed something moving in the corner of my vision. I turned quickly, but before I could react, the door slammed shut behind me again. Panic surged through me as I rushed to the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. A soft giggle echoed in the room, chilling my blood. I pivoted, but nothing was there. The pictures seemed to shimmer under the fluorescent lights. "Help us." The whispers had transformed, now full of pain and desperation. I could feel their energy pulling, weaving together in a tapestry of sorrow. And then, I saw it, a message scrawled messily on the wall beneath a child's photo. They won't let us go. Suddenly, a loud thud came from behind the door, followed by frantic scratching. Whatever was outside wanted in. Heart racing, I knew I had to find another way out before that force breached the door. But as I ventured deeper into the room, searching for escape, I turned to see the shadow emerge from the corner again. It stepped closer, its hollow eyes locking onto mine, and in that moment, I realized that the whispers weren't just cries for help, they were warnings. My chance for survival was slipping away. I felt the shadow's gaze bore into me. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. I stumbled backward, searching for anything I could use to defend myself. My heart pounded as the dim light flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows. In a panic, I rushed to the examination table, hoping to find something I could use. The surface was grimy, but I spotted a small scalpel among the rusted tools. I grabbed it, feeling its cold metal against my skin. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The energy in the room shifted suddenly. The shadow coiled tighter, pulling at the edges of my vision. I could hear the scratching at the door growing more frantic. Whatever was out there was determined to get in. "Leave me alone," I shouted, more to convince myself than anything. Silence followed, heavy and oppressive. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. Then I turned back to the photographs on the wall. The children's faces seemed to watch me, their expressions shifting from joy to sorrow. My eyes landed on one photo in particular. The girl had a distinctive red dress, and she looked eerily familiar. A sense of recognition washed over me, but I couldn't place it. That's when I noticed something at the base of the wall. A small, loose panel. My heart raced as I knelt closer, my pulse quickening at the thought of escape. If the children were trapped, maybe there was a way to free them. Or maybe it led somewhere safe. But before I could pry it open, a loud crash echoed behind me. The door buckled violently, rattling on its hinges as if something were trying to force its way in. I froze, a cold sweat breaking out across my brow. I could feel time slow, the moment stretching like a nightmare. I had to act fast. I quickly pulled at the panel, prying it free. It creaked and groaned, but finally gave way. A dark opening loomed ahead. I glanced back at the door, it was nearly splintering. "Help us!" The whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices merging into one. Desperation rushed through me as I squeezed into the opening, my body barely fitting. I felt a cold wind rush around me as I crawled into the dark space. It smelled musty, like damp earth and decay. I continued forward, heart pounding, and glanced back one last time at the room behind me. The shadow had changed forms, its outline flickering in the light like a dying flame. As I crawled further into the darkness, I heard the door finally give way with a crash. A rush of heavy footsteps followed, and my instincts kicked in. I scurried faster, pushing myself into the narrow passage. Then everything went dark. The path twisted as I moved, and I lost the sense of where I was going. Panic clawed at me, but I pressed on, determined to escape what I left behind. Suddenly, I stopped short. In the beam of light from my phone, something shifted in the shadows ahead. A figure stood, and it was no longer just a shadow. I stumbled back, finding my voice again. "Who's there?" The response was quick. A low, sinister laugh echoed from the darkness, chilling me to the bone. I could feel it wrap around me, constricting my chest. And then I saw the eyes glowing back at me as I realized I wasn't alone anymore. The flickering light in the narrow passageway dimmed even further as the laughter echoed around me. I clenched the scalpel tighter, nearly piercing my palm with fear. I was trapped, with nowhere to go but forward into the darkness and back into the unknown horrors. "Join us, Jamie," the voice whispered, snaking through the shadows like a wisp of smoke wrapping tighter around my heart. I swallowed hard, battling the wave of panic rising in my chest. I knew I had to move. I didn't want to see the eyes in the dark, not again. Rallying my strength, I pressed forward, every instinct urging me to flee. The air felt heavy, full of the dread that weighed on my shoulders. I could hear faint whispers, murmured pleas of anguish. "Help us, don't look at their eyes," their voices mixed into a chorus, turning my blood cold. Just as I thought I could push through the darkness, the figure ahead shifted, moving closer. My heart galloped within my chest. Squinting against the dark, I couldn't make out any features, but I felt its presence pressing against my skin. I stepped back, ready to bolt if I had to. But then it happened, a sudden rush of wind swept through the corridor, pulling me towards the figure. Disoriented, I stumbled forward, and as I did, I caught a glimpse of other shapes, shadows flickering at the edge of my vision. The children, those hollow-eyed occupants of my nightmares, were surrounding me, whispering in unison, growing louder and louder. "Don't look away." I remembered Sarah's words, echoing in my mind, but the pressure was palpable. I steeled myself and refused to yield to the dread. "I'm not afraid of you," I shouted into the darkness, my voice firmer than I felt. In that moment of defiance, something shifted. The oppressive energy around me seemed to recede. I could feel the shadows flickering back, almost surprised by my resistance. I took a deep breath, remembering the journal and the children's longing for escape. This wasn't just a fight for my survival, it was a fight for theirs too. I turned away from the glowing eyes, focusing instead on the path ahead. There had to be an end to this tortured maze, a way to break free from the cycle. With only the soft glow of my phone guiding me, I pressed on, my heart pounding with every step. Each stride felt like a victory against the whispers still lingering behind me. I wouldn't be drawn back into the clutches of the darkness again. Through corridors and narrow paths I crawled, stumbling through the maze I hoped was leading me to freedom. But as I moved deeper, the passageway grew narrower, the air thickening like a heavy blanket. With every twist and turn, I could feel the shadows slipping away, but also felt doubt creeping back in. What if I was just running deeper into the horror? What if the escape was a mirage, covered by the nightmares still lurking in the recesses of my mind? Then, just as I thought I couldn't run any longer, I saw the light ahead, a pinprick of brightness cutting through the murkiness. I saw it shimmer like a hope I had almost given up on. I plunged forward, reckless now, fueled by desperation and that flicker of hope. As the light grew brighter, I felt the shadows shrinking behind me. It was a race now, and I had to make it. I could sense the atmosphere shifting around me, as if they knew I was breaking free. Just a few more strides. Finally, I burst into the light, my breath escaping in gasps. I stumbled into an open space, feeling fresh air on my skin. I had made it outside. But as my eyes adjusted, I realized it wasn't over yet. The darkness hadn't disappeared entirely, it lingered just out of view, watching. But I was free, at least for now. I turned back to the narrow passageway, catching one last glimpse of the shadows receding. They watched me, hold lingering whispers coiling in the air. I blinked, my heart slowing for the first time in what felt like eternity. I didn't know why I was spared or if I truly escaped, but what haunted me the most was that I could still feel their presence, their stories left untold. Weeks passed after that night. I went back to normal life, but nothing felt the same. I never returned to the hospital, nor could I bring myself to speak about what happened. I moved away from the city entirely. Sometimes, I still hear their whispers in the night, echoing in the silence of my new home. They call to me, reminding me of the darkness that I left behind. Sometimes I wonder if I did enough to help them, or if they, too, remain trapped in the shadows. And as I lay in bed, I look toward the darkness beyond my window, and wonder if it ever really ends, if some places hold their hauntings forever and I was just another unwitting player in their eternal game.